We've made a decision. Your father and I are going to Brandon's wedding instead of yours. My mother didn't even say hello. She just delivered the news. Since you told the whole family you volunteered to give up your date to help him, we know you understand. He needs us more. I looked down at the document on my vanity. It was a forensic invoice for $75,000, the venue deposit my brother had stolen from my account using a forged signature. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just said, I understand. Before I tell you how my brother accidentally broadcast his own confession to 300 people, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? I want to see how far this story travels. I hung up the phone and looked at my reflection in the mirror. My pulse hadn't even quickened. In a normal family, this would be a tragedy. A mother abandoning her daughter's wedding to attend her son's on the same day? That's the kind of thing that breaks hearts. But I wasn't heartbroken. I was just balancing the books. You see, most people think toxic families run on emotions, jealousy, anger, hate. They're wrong. My family runs on economics. It's what I call the narcissist's ledger. In the business model of my parents, children aren't people, they are assets. My brother, Brandon, was their high-risk, high-reward stock. He was the volatile tech startup they poured everything into, convinced he would one day make them rich and famous. He had the charm, the looks, the loud ambition. They dumped their savings into his ventures, his image, his endless bailouts, always believing the big payout was just around the corner. And me? I was the savings bond. I was the boring, reliable asset they kept in the drawer to liquidate whenever the high-risk stock crashed. They didn't hate me. You don't hate a savings bond. You just cash it out when you need to cover a margin call. I learned this when I was 18. I had earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university out of state. It was my ticket out. But 3 days before the acceptance deadline, my father sat me down at the kitchen table. He didn't yell. He just laid out the math. Brandon had been accepted to a middling business school, but he needed a new luxury car to network properly. Appearance is equity, Megan, my father had said, sliding a withdrawal slip toward me. If he shows up in a beater, he loses respect. We need your college fund to secure the down payment. You can go to community college here. It's the same degree, right? They forced me to decline the scholarship. They liquidated my future to buy Brandon a depreciating asset because they believed his image was a better investment than my education. I cried then. I felt worthless then. But I wasn't 18 anymore. My name is Megan. I'm 30 years old, and my parents made a critical error in their portfolio management. They assumed I stayed the same, quiet, compliant girl who signed that withdrawal slip. They didn't know that I took that community college degree and turned it into a weapon. I am a forensic accountant. I don't just do taxes. I audit cartels, dismantle corporate fraud, and trace hidden assets for federal agencies. My entire career is built on finding the lies people hide in their ledgers. For the last 3 years, while they thought I was just pushing papers, I was conducting a silent, comprehensive audit of the family finances. I tracked every dollar they gave Brandon. I tracked every loan he defaulted on. And I tracked the $75,000 he stole from the family trust. A trust I legally co-owned to pay for his wedding venue. They thought they were discarding a spare part to save their golden boy one last time. They didn't realize they were trying to defraud a professional auditor. I picked up the invoice from the vanity. The ink was still crisp. They wanted to play finance? Fine. I was about to close their account for good. I walked down the hall to my home office. I didn't slam the door. I didn't throw things. I simply sat down in my ergonomic chair and woke up my 3 monitors. People think forensic accounting is about hacking mainframes or decoding encrypted files in a dark room. It's not. It's about knowing which password to use and knowing exactly where to look. I navigated to the First National Trust portal. My family thinks I'm just a signatory on the account for emergencies, a convenience they allowed years ago so I could handle administrative tasks when my grandmother passed. They forgot that signatory means access. They forgot that I insisted on being a co-trustee for tax purposes 5 years ago. They saw it as me being helpful. I saw it as insurance. I typed in my credentials. The dashboard loaded instantly, bathed in the cool blue light of the screen. And there it was. A bright red notification in the upper right corner. Low balance alert. I clicked on the transaction history. The withdrawal had happened 3 days ago. $75,000 wired to Prestige Venues LLC. It was the deposit for the street. Regis, the venue Brandon had been bragging about for weeks. But a wire transfer requires authorization. It requires a signature. I clicked the view image icon next to the transaction. The scanned copy of the authorization form filled the screen in high definition. I leaned in. There, on the bottom line, was my name, Megan Sterling. It was a decent attempt. To a tired bank teller at 4 o'clock on a Friday, it probably looked authentic. But to me, it was a joke. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a stack of old correspondence I kept for exactly this reason. I found a birthday card Brandon had sent me 3 years ago, back when he needed a loan for a sure-thing crypto investment. I held the card up to the screen. I traced the loop of the letter R in his handwriting. It had a distinct, sharp angle at the top, a tick he had never been able to correct since grade school. I looked at the signature on the bank form. The R in sterling had the exact same sharp angle. It wasn't just a forgery. It was a lazy one. He hadn't even bothered to practice. He just assumed I would never look, or that if I did, I would be too passive to do anything about it. My pulse remained steady. I didn't reach for the phone to scream at him. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Arresting him now would be a nuisance, a temporary embarrassment he could spin as a misunderstanding or a family dispute. He would cry to our parents. They would guilt me into dropping the charges, and he would learn to hide his tracks better next time. No. I needed something permanent. I pressed print. The laser printer hummed to life, spitting out the high-resolution image of his crime. I took the warm sheet of paper, punched 3 holes in it, and walked over to my filing cabinet. I opened a fresh manila folder and labeled it with a black marker. Due diligence. I placed the forgery inside. It was the first document in the file, but I knew it wouldn't be the last. I wasn't just building a case. I was building a coffin, and I needed him to hammer in a few more nails before I closed the lid. My phone buzzed again. I expected it to be Brandon, maybe texting a fake apology or a new excuse. But the name flashing on the screen made my jaw tighten. Mary. Mary was Brandon's fiancée, a woman whose entire personality was curated for Instagram. She was the kind of person who would push you down a flight of stairs and then ask you to take a photo of her outfit while you bled. I answered on the second ring. I didn't say hello. I just waited. Megan. Hi. Her voice was high-pitched, syrupy sweet, the vocal equivalent of artificial sweetener. I know things are crazy right now with the scheduling mix-up. So unfortunate. But I wanted to catch you before you got too busy moping. What do you need, Mary? I asked. I didn't have time for the performance. Right, straight to business. I love that about you. She giggled, a hollow sound. So, listen, I was doing my final fitting, and the stylist agreed that the neckline of my dress is just screaming for that vintage emerald necklace. You know, the one Grandma left you? I looked at the framed photo of my grandmother on my desk. She had left me that necklace because I was the only one who visited her in the nursing home without asking for a check. It was the only heirloom I owned. You want my necklace? I stated flatly. Borrow. Just borrow, she corrected quickly. It's my something borrowed, get it? Besides, since your wedding is, well, you know, effectively canceled since no one is going, you won't be needing it, right? It would be a shame for it to sit in a box when it could be having a moment on a real bride. There it was. The casual cruelty. She wasn't just asking for jewelry. She was asserting dominance. In her mind, she had won. She had the date, she had the family, and now she wanted the spoils of my defeat. She assumed I was broken. She assumed I was sitting in a pile of tissues, desperate for any connection to the family, even if it meant being their accessory supplier. A year ago, I might have argued. I might have tried to explain why that necklace mattered. But today I was an auditor, and Mary had just handed me a subpoena. You're right, I said. My voice was smooth, devoid of any edge. It would be a shame to waste it. Oh, thank God. Mary exhaled, the relief audible. Can you overnight it? I need it for the rehearsal dinner photos tomorrow. I can't ship it, Mary. It's uninsurable through standard mail. I lied effortlessly. But I'll have it with me. I'm still hosting a small dinner on the 14th. Since you guys are stopping by anyway to see whoever you're coming to see, you can pick it up then. There was a pause. I could hear the gears turning in her head. She knew they were only coming to my venue to ambush Mr. Sterling, my father-in-law. She knew it was a raid, not a visit. But her greed was louder than her caution. The necklace was the perfect prop for her victory lap. Fine, she snapped, dropping the sweet act. Have it ready. And polish it, okay? It looked dull the last time I saw you wear it. It'll be shining, I promised. I hung up. I didn't feel insulted. I felt satisfied. Greed is a predictable variable. It makes people sloppy. If she had been smart, she would have stayed far away from me. But she wanted the necklace more than she wanted to be safe. She had just confirmed they would be walking through my doors on Saturday. She thought she was coming to collect a trophy. She didn't know she was coming to provide the final piece of evidence for the prosecution. I opened the due diligence folder and added a new note. Asset requested, emerald necklace. Status. Bait. 2 days before the wedding, the The final tumbler clicked into place. I posted a photo of the view from the venue, the Sterling Estate. A private peninsula accessible only by a single, guarded bridge. I made sure to tag my father-in-law, Arthur Sterling. Within 20 minutes, my phone rang. It was Brandon. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I saw your post," he said, his voice tight. "Is Arthur Sterling actually there? The venture capitalist? He's Lucas's father, Brandon." Of course he's here. I could practically hear him salivating. Brandon's real estate empire was currently hemorrhaging cash. He needed a lifeline, and Arthur Sterling was the biggest whale in the ocean. "Listen," he said, his tone shifting to that fake, brotherly warmth that always made my skin crawl. "I've been thinking. It's wrong for us to be apart on such a big day. We moved some things around. Mom, Dad, Mary, and I. We can stop by your reception. Just for an hour. To wish you well." He wasn't coming to wish me well. He was coming to pitch. He thought he could turn my wedding into his networking event. "That's very generous of you," I said, signaling Lucas across the room. "I'll tell security to put you on the list for 6 o'clock sharp. Don't be late." Saturday arrived with the kind of weather brides pray for: clear skies, a gentle breeze off the water, and the golden hour sun painting the estate in amber light. But I wasn't focused on the weather. I was focused on the perimeter. The Sterling Estate wasn't just a venue. It was a fortress. High walls, a single entry point, and professional security, who looked more like Secret Service agents than event staff. Once my family crossed that bridge, there was no casual exit. They were in my jurisdiction. At 5 minutes past 6, a rented Escalade rolled up the driveway. I watched from the balcony as they stepped out. The contrast was painful. My guests were milling about on the lawn in understated linen suits and silk dresses, sipping cocktails and laughing quietly. My family looked like they were arriving at a nightclub. Mary was wearing a dress that was suspiciously close to white and covered in sequins. My mother was fussing with her hair, looking terrified. Brandon adjusted his jacket, scanning the crowd not for me, but for his target. Lucas intercepted them at the entrance. My husband is a quiet man, the kind who listens more than he speaks, which makes people underestimate him. They see his calm demeanor and assume he's soft. They don't realize that as a risk manager, his job is to identify threats and neutralize them before they strike. "Brandon," Lucas said, extending a hand. "Glad you made it. Mr. Sterling is expecting you." Brandon puffed up, buttoning his jacket. "Excellent. I have the pitch deck in the car." "Should I?" "No need," Lucas interrupted smoothly. "He prefers a conversation first. But there is one protocol. Mr. Sterling documents all initial high-level negotiations for the corporate archives. It's for the press release later, assuming things go well. Do you mind?" Lucas gestured to a sound technician standing nearby, holding a small black clip. "A recording?" Brandon asked. "For posterity," Lucas said. The handshake moment. It's standard for deals of this magnitude. It was the perfect bait for a narcissist. Brandon didn't see a risk. He saw a photo op. He saw validation. "Of course," Brandon said, straightening his tie. "Let's do it properly." I watched as the technician clipped the lavalier microphone to Brandon's lapel. He adjusted it, checked the battery pack, and gave Lucas a nod. Brandon smirked at Mary, mouthing, "I told you." He thought he was being prepped for a documentary about his success. He didn't realize he was being wired for a confession. Lucas guided them away from the party, toward the heavy oak doors of the main house. "Right this way. The library is soundproof. You'll have total privacy." I took a sip of my champagne. The trap wasn't just set. The mouse had just put on the cheese. The library was imposing, lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and centered around a massive mahogany desk. Mr. Sterling sat behind it, looking every bit the titan of industry. He didn't stand up. He simply gestured to the chairs opposite him. My parents sat down, looking awed and terrified. Brandon took the center seat, Mary hovering behind him like a sequined vulture. Lucas stood by the door, arms crossed, watching. "Mr. Sterling," Brandon started, putting on his best salesman voice. "It's an honor. My firm, Zenith Properties, is on the verge of something truly disruptive. We're looking for a strategic partner to..." Mr. Sterling tapped a folder on his desk. $500,000 for a minority stake to fund expansion? "Exactly," Brandon said. "We're scaling fast. An initial public offering is imminent. I can't share details because of Securities and Exchange Commission rules, but early investors are looking at a 10-to-1 return in 72 hours. It was a lie. There was no offering, only debt. Sterling leaned back. "High reward means high risk. I don't do unsecured deals that fast. I'll offer a bridge loan, $500,000. Available today." Brandon nodded eagerly. "Convertible debt works, but I want collateral," Sterling added. sliding over a document. It was not an investment contract. It was a deed of trust, a lien on property equal to the loan, he said. Repay next week and it disappears. But I'll need guarantors. He looked straight at my parents. If you believe in him, pledge your house. My mother froze. Our home? 72 hours, Brandon whispered. Once the listing hits, I'll clear the mortgage and buy you that Florida condo. Trust me. They could refuse, but that would mean admitting he was a failure. Greed beat fear. We trust him, my father said. Where do we sign? From the security room next door, I watched them sign. Sterling gathered the papers. One last formality, representations and warranties. Certify there are no undisclosed debts. None, Brandon said quickly. Good, Sterling replied. Lucas stopped the technician from removing the microphone. Leave it. We need to confirm the transfer. That was my cue. I entered the library and shut the doors behind me. I'm the auditor, I said, placing a folder labeled due diligence on the desk. What is that? Brandon snapped. Proof you forged my signature and stole $75,000 from the family trust 3 days ago, I said. Which means you just committed fraud on a secured loan. I looked at Sterling. Acceleration clause? Immediate default, he said coldly. You lost your house, I told my father. Brandon lunged for me, screaming, grabbing the folder. Lucas caught his arm and slammed him onto the desk as glass shattered. That's enough. You set me up, Brandon shouted. You confessed, I said, pointing at his lapel. The microphone light was glowing red. It's broadcasting to the ballroom. Everyone heard about the gambling debt. And the fake offering. Sterling raised his phone. Police are on the way. 2 officers later dragged Brandon out in cuffs. He's being charged with assault and wire fraud, Sterling told them. Outside, guests whispered on the lawn as Mary tried to slip away. Security stopped her and dumped her handbag onto the valet stand. Silver spoons. Crystal shakers. Gold napkin rings. She fled without a word. My parents stood by their rented sport utility vehicle, hollow-faced. We have nowhere to go, my mother whispered. He lied, I said. And you wanted to believe him. I walked away, deleted their numbers from my phone, and joined Lucas on the balcony. The taillights disappeared into the night. Are you okay? He asked. I'm solvent, I said. The audit is complete. If you've ever had to cut off toxic family to save yourself, hit like and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold.